Hello and welcome to this Bloomberg Quint Facebook Live. 50 days, it's been 50 days nearly since the Prime Minister announced the shock decision to take out rupees 500,000 notes from circulation. 50 days is what he asked for from consumers, from citizens. He said that there will be some inconvenience over this period, but after that things will start to normalize. He promised that this measure will make a dent in the black economy. And then, of course, the government changed the narrative and started to talk about how this is going to bring a cashless economy to India or a less cash economy to India. Well, after that 50-day deadline, what has changed? What do we know about the banking system, the economy? Helping us understand and discuss some of the issues that we're continuing to grapple with, two veterans of the economy and the banking sector. K.C. Chakravarti is former Deputy Governor of the Reserve Bank of India. He's joining us via Skype from London. Ashwin Parekh is MD of Ashwin Parekh Advisory Services, and he's a long-time watcher of the banking sector. Thank you both very much for being with us on this Bloomberg Quint discussion. Mr. Chakravarti, let me first start by asking you, the first initial reaction that we all had was one of shock. We've now had 50 days to absorb some segments of the economy. The banking sector have adjusted, some have not. What are your initial thoughts on how this 50-day process, sir, has been managed? I think that is the first question that I want to start with, both from the central bank, the government and the banking systems.
I don't think it has been managed. You see, look, I thought you said that it has been mismanaged. And you see, the things have been quite chaotic. And that much only I will say. And I will say here, most unpreparedness was from the part of the banking system. I don't know, the government, you see, they are only dictating the term or telling what is to be done. So all what I can say that the situation was chaotic. We don't know exactly what is happening at the ground level. And normal bank customers have suffered. More than that, you see, look, I think many aspects of the Contract Act, that is the contract between the bank customer and banker, has been violated.
So you do think that there was mismanagement, but you also accept that there was a need for secrecy, which may have left us in a position where management was not possible, at least in the early days.
You see, look, when you say public convenience, secrecy cannot increase the public inconvenience. That's the thing. You see, look, if you want to be secret, you be secret. But you cannot say, because I have to be secret, so people should suffer because of my secrecy. I think that is unacceptable in any civilized society.
Mr. Parekh, do you have a different perspective on this? From the banking sector's perspective, for instance, just to throw out one number, there's still only 6 lakh crore of new currency in the system.
Yeah, so I mean, the question is very pertinent. I thought, personally, I do believe, I do agree with Dr. Chakravarti's view that I suppose the mismanagement that he is referring to, one has to accept the fact that the reform itself envisaged, that when it was going to be introduced, will involve some hundreds of thousands of bankers at the ground level. And you had several bank branches, several locations from where the exchange of notes would have taken place or depositing of cash would have taken place. Now, you have to therefore accept the fact that you're doing a very secretive, let's say, reform, but then you're giving it to people. You're giving it to people to the extent that if there were people who wanted to misuse it, and we've seen instances of those. I mean, both people from the regulator's office, for instance, or that is the watchers, as we are told, or people who are associated with banking were found, to have misused the entire arrangement. Somewhere along, when you ask this question, I do agree that the first 10 days, perhaps, they should have really been a little more careful about planning the first 10 days. If the government wanted to keep the whole thing as a big secret, rightly so, I would say they may be having their own reasons and invalid. Nothing can be talked about that. But I would certainly say that the way the whole thing got managed after that, several mistakes. Introduction of 2000 rupee note as a denomination to begin with, for instance, I thought, caused more chaos and more, let's say, problems or suffering at the grassroots level. So that was first one. The availability of notes, one can understand that the notes were perhaps not available, otherwise the whole thing would have remained a secret, in that sense. But I suppose initially going after urban customers, then going after rural customers thereafter, making the urban banking system totally dried up of cash or notes. These are some of the things which are purely management issues. I suppose reform in its own place, perhaps may be well worthy of. And we are really going to benefit a lot out of that. And then we'll see how much we're going to benefit out of that. But I thought the management part, and perhaps the first 10, 15 days, the way the flip-flops happened, then somewhere along I thought some stability got established after that. Till suddenly we reached a point where we suddenly started realizing that we had more notes coming in than what we had anticipated. Yeah. So I mean, if we talked about 14 lakh crore notes, worth of notes into the system, and suddenly we find that perhaps all of them have come back, or perhaps, who knows, I mean, some more may come in which case the so-called counterfeit notes or fake notes may perhaps have got into the system. I'm saying perhaps. Yeah. It is for the banking regulator and the banking system to find out how exactly this mathematics is adding up now, basically,
Absolutely. Mr. Chakravarti, I want your reaction to 2 points. One, the last point that Mr. Parekh said, that as to how much money is coming back. Now, we don't have the final number from the Reserve Bank of India. They stopped giving out that number. The government said that there's some double counting, so we don't know the exact amount. But would it be a surprise to you if most of this currency came back into the banking system, which would then either say that everybody has managed to game the system and bring that currency back, or that there was no black money to begin with?
No, you see, look, nobody can say there was no black money. If you say that, but then you see, look, issue is that the black money is not in terms of the currency, at least with the rich people will be there. So that's why my expectation is that major part of this note will come up. I again say, the money has not come back, that is black money. That itself is also not truth. There are many people with whom there will be some money will be left out. There will be NRIs, with them there will be money. There will be normal decay and wastage of the notes which will never come back, and this is not, because how do the Reserve Bank find out what is the note under circulation? That is how much note they have issued, how much have come back to them. But in the process, if the notes have been destroyed, it has got the fire, it is lying with somebody. So again, it is very difficult to say that the note which has not come back, that is black money, and note which has come back, that is white money. It is not, their money is mixed. 6% is the black money in the cash. So some that part will be definitely has come back, some that part may not come back. But major part of the note will come back, and I think that is happening. But there is no doubt in that now.
So basically, Mr. Chakravarti, at the end of whatever, at this 50-day period, the data we get will actually tell us nothing then.
Yeah, I said at the beginning, you see, look, it does not give you any result. This is what from the very beginning I am saying that. You see, look, and that's why central bank, at least Reserve Bank, consistently has taken a stand in the past that it will not help in any way to curtail the black money or other problems which we are saying, counterfeit notes, etc., terrorist financing. These are all different things. So it was not to give you any result. So you have done that. That's okay, no problem in that. Now, what was the philosophy of doing that thing? What are the consideration? I don't know. That's okay. If there are some other consideration, I can't throw any light on that. But then it has no economic rationale and sense. That's what I have said at the beginning, and I continue to hold that view. And that's my view.
The other point Mr. Parekh raised, from the banking system's perspective, and sir, you spent your entire career in the public sector banking system. Does it surprise you that we have had instances of bankers being, involved in some sort of money laundering exercises? Nobody knows the extent to which, but the amount that has been caught is very small. But it's still there. It's a bit of an embarrassment on the banking sector, sir, isn't it?
Now look, first thing that whether it is money laundering or I don't know, but one thing we must say. If we say 25% of our economy is having black money, and that's what I am saying, this is about, say, 40 trillion rupees, 40 lakh crore rupees are having the black money. Now, what we are trying to say, a part of this black money, everybody is involved. Now, we cannot say that banks are all saints. There will be black sheep in the system. If 25% is black money, everybody is a part of that thing. Now, as compared to that, what is the number of people? You see, what is the number of transactions? What is the number of staff? And how many people have been caught in the system? I think it is insignificant. Now, if we say our country is only country of saints, country of good people, then this question would have arisen. But nobody says that in the banking system, some black sheep are not there. And when you expose that system to the risk, You must understand. I think it is the senior management of the banks are responsible. If they were not, they thought that they are not ready to do this job. They should have at the beginning only should have cautioned the Reserve Bank government that we will be not able to handle this situation unless you give us sufficient notes. So to say that bankers are like this, no. There are people in the system, in the society, in every segment of the life that there are some black sheep. So this has not surprised me if some of these incidents has happened.
Mr. Parekh, I mean, there is granular data of all deposits coming in, right? So, I mean, if after the fact one has to analyze where things went wrong or if undue deposits were made in Jan Dhan accounts, it's possible, right? We can do it.
No, but I think, the whole reform has just resulted in that, Ira. I think what it has given the nation, perhaps, is the digital record. The digital record of all deposits, record of also the banks at which the exchange took place, and also the record of people who are associated both from one side of the game, that is the customers, and the bankers themselves. So that's the only thing that's a big thing, I wouldn't say only. That's a big thing we are left with. Now what is important is, how do we go after that data? How do we now use that data in such a manner that, let's say, anybody who's deposited beyond a certain number or a certain amount, start examining, whether he's filed his income tax returns on one side, whether his banking account or banking transaction behavior suggested that he would have actually brought in that kind of money at all. It's available, it's possible. The digital record that's now available has to be really analyzed, it has to be used, because it's a huge asset the nation possesses today. That's one. Second is, in as much it has to be used, there is also now a growing fear that it should not be misused. Because if you look at some segments, of let's say the economy and people, if you start running after smaller people, then the pain that it will cause, and this is basically where things, I would say, there's a huge divide between the government and the policymakers and those who execute. If you leave it to the mercy of those who are executing this reform, then I suppose they may go to the extent of misusing, to the extent that the government will also get a bad name out of it. So, that behavior, unless it is well controlled, and the only government can do it, quite honestly, at this point in time. Because, you let the cat loose out of the bag. Now we don't know. The cat has the digital record. Yeah, and it's important that, therefore, a meaningful, correct use is made. So that is one. Second is, I suppose, the whole debate about how many notes now to be put in the circulation, how much of that push is essential. It's a matter of strategy, it's a matter of approach that the government and the regulator will take. The pain that it causes at the grassroots level, if they keep a constant look at that, then I suppose things will work out very well. Because in a less cash kind of an environment, you're certainly not looking at replacing all the notes. That is very clear. We all accept that. We all accept that with the digital record, our ability to track black money is much better, when compared with cash, for example. So to that extent, this is why, this is all proper. It has to be used. If there is any misuse, then we'll go back and we'll say what this reform was all about. It was well thought about, but poorly executed then in that case, or wrongly executed. That's worst.
Absolutely. Mr. Chakrabarti, can the central bank force the system into a less cash scenario? Because at the end of the day, you print as much currency as is demanded. That is what has happened so far. Can you move to a system where you impose a certain amount of currency on the system?
You see, look, whether central bank or government can do that or not, I don't know. But what I say, any democratic system, any civilized society does not allow to do that. Look, even in this country, when I say any payment, even tax payment, they will say you can pay by internet, you can pay by mobile banking, you can pay at the bank branch, you can pay by cash. You must give all the alternative of the payment. Now, I don't know that in any country where there is sufficient technology, infrastructure, less people have the cash. Generation has gone down, the printing of currency notes have gone down. Now to think of that there will be a cashless society, it is impossible. Less cash society, it is impossible. Every year more number of currency notes have to be printed, more coins has to be produced. What will happen? That as a percentage of the cash, as a percentage of transaction, that may come down. But to think that we don't require cash or we require less cash in terms of the amount, I think then we are living in a fool's paradise. It has not happened in any developed society. Now, second thing for our country, we must understand in any society it is poor those more cash transaction. Now, people who say that we will do the digital banking for the poor, they must ask the question, are poor in the developed countries in USA, Europe, UK are doing the cashless transaction? Now, all the technology companies, if they cannot make the digital banking 100% for the poor in USA, poor in UK, poor in Europe, how they are going to do it cashless for poor in Africa and poor in India? I don't understand that thing. This is only some way of making money. Beyond that, nothing. So cashless is a much bigger thing. It will require a strategy. We have to think it. Yes. What all say, over a period of time, cash as percentage of GDP may come down, but total quantum of cash requirement will never come down. At least I don't see in the next 20 years, unless we develop some other alternative to that. We must understand cash is a technology and we should not mess with it. It has 100% penetration so far as payment system is concerned anywhere in the world.
That's interesting. Cash is also a technology. Mr. Chakravarti, there have been various digital reports, and Mr. Parekh, I'll ask you about this as well. In fact, the Vatal committee, the most recent committee, their full report just came out, and that is suggesting, reduction in, say, MDR, merchant discounts rates. They are saying, make cash transactions beyond a certain amount more expensive. My point is that if you reduce the MDRs, a lot of these payment facilitators will not be interested in actually pushing this system, right? I mean, for instance, give you an example, when this exercise was announced and the ATM fees were disabled for banks, I know for a fact that banks have stopped restocking ATMs because they earn nothing out of it anymore. So if you take away this merchant discount rate, the Visas and the MasterCards of the world will certainly not be interested in pushing this service very far.
You see, no service you can provide free. That's the I think. Look, but then there will be economics. If you say that the digital transaction, electronic transaction has to be cheaper, then you have to make the cash transaction costlier. But I don't think that by pushing it, by freeing it, you will be not able, by dictate, you will be not able to do that. What you have to say that it has to be priced economically, and ultimately people will select that what is the relationship between price, security, convenience, etc. So it has to be done economically, but you will be not able to push it that. And I don't believe anything can be done free in any commerce. If we say that banking or the digital transaction, this is a commercial transaction, then it cannot be done free. Because you see, commerce can never be done free. It will never exist, it will disappear.
Mr. Parekh, same question to you.
No, certainly. I think taking from what Dr. Chakravarti just said, I suppose between a diktat and the market determining the price, there's a vast difference. Now, we may start with the diktat to begin with, but if the service providers do not, make anything out of their investments or make anything out of their effort, then they'll shy away from it. They'll run away from the system. So I suppose somewhere along in the normal course, had we not created this disruption, the pace at which digital banking would have happened, perhaps would have been a different pace. The pricing would have been in a different manner altogether. We've actually attempted a disruption. It's a good disruption, I would say. We've attempted it. There are disruptions, for example, in several other schemes like Janadhan, Jeevan Jyoti, other schemes. Good disruptions. Now it has to be backed up with a proper strategy. You start dictating, something to the marketplace, then the marketplace will either not understand what you're dictating and they'll run away, or alternatively, they'll find ways in still making something out of it, or misusing it, which means you're going back to where you started from. So I suppose somewhere along, a good long-term approach, is really essential. If I establish that, let's say not today, but 2 years later, if there is a less cash economy, and if people are going to benefit and therefore the players are going to benefit by volumes, for instance, then there is a case. Then there's certainly a good strong case for that. But my mind is very clear there. At some point in time, the regulator cannot dictate the pricing too much, I thought. At the disruption point, Maybe there's a reason. Maybe there's a justified reason, But I mean, gradually they will have to move out of that, I suppose.
Okay. Two last questions, and I'll stay with you for a minute, Mr. Parekh. Again, this Vatal committee talks about the fact that banks will become a less central part of the payment system.
Yeah.
The payment system will be more non-bank if we move towards this digital ecosystem. Do you see that happening? And then what is the implication for the banking sector? Because the payments part was very lucrative for them.
Yeah, so this is where I thought somewhere along the so-called disconnect is happening. Yeah. You see, I mean, if you look at the last, let's say, 2 weeks announcements by banking system, various progressive banks, leadership banks, you're getting a very clear sense that they're planning to compete, they're taking their weapons out. So we started perhaps with cards when RuPay was introduced. Then we started with the wallet reform when the wallets were introduced in the country in a big way. We're moving away from both now. We're going back to the bank accounts, which means if I look at SBI to RBL to Yes Bank, to several announcements, they are now saying that you can free yourself, from wallets, from cards, do a bank-to-bank kind of transfer.
Because of UPI.
So there is, I suppose, a strong resistance from the universal banking system. They seem to be really preparing their arms for the payment, the arrival of payment banks, I suppose. And you can actually sense that. Fortunately, the minute Aadhaar-based banking is introduced, for instance, the question is who will benefit, banking or the participants? So I suppose the committee's report to that extent, and what the banking behavior is today are two different things altogether, in fact.
Mr. Chakravarti, last question to you, and this is a question only you can answer, sir. And you've spoken about it, I know, with a lot of people, but what this has done to the credibility of the central bank and how the central bank needs to repair it. I mean, there's nothing to say that, this moves over a cycle, right? So if there has been damage, I presume the central bank needs to restore it, but what is your impression on whether this has hurt the RBI's credibility and how we need to correct it?
No, let me be very clear. Everybody's credibility has come down. You see, look, I don't see even the government, even the central bank, even the banks, society as a whole. I will say that, look, this exercise, if the credibility to be restored, then we must see what is the end result. Have we got those end results or not? But otherwise, today what is happening, I think why only we say central bank? I think bankers, their credibility has been lost. You see, the people are today all saying that bankers are they are corrupt, they are doing that thing. People have started questioning that issue, that even government's credibility, you see, look, that why we have done that, what is the objective? So I think that society as a whole, our credibility has gone down. You see, look, I give you only one example. You invite the tourists, I can understand NRIs, but foreign tourists, you are giving per day, per week, 5,000 rupees. It is not even $10 per day. What is the credibility? I find the maximum difficulty when somebody asks me that how are you giving the foreign tourists $10 per day that they have to spend for the cash transaction. Let us see, that's the thing. So society as a whole, our credibility has gone down. There is nothing there. Yes, with the assumption, with the expectation that something good has happened, if that happens, partly that credibility will be restored. If that does not happen, then definitely, you see, our credibility is at the stake, and everybody's credibility has gone down, including our credibility.
Including the currency's credibility, actually. Some would say that even the trust in the currency would have been damaged because of this. But we'll have to...
Everything, that's what I'm saying, that it is the entire system, I will say that. Look, I cannot say even when the people ask me the question, the same thing happens. Similarly, you see, people may ask you the question. I say everybody's credibility is in a question.
All right, Mr. T.C. Chakravarti, Mr. Ashwin Parekh, thank you so much for joining us on this discussion. This is a debate which won't end quickly. We've got many months and maybe years to understand the implication of this demonetization exercise. Thanks for watching Bloomberg Quint.